We all heard the term the Renaissance man. Putting aside the fact that it is sexist and excluding half of the planet, it is used for someone who is good at many things. What I will talk about here will be relevant to our architecture, engineering, construction industry, and how terms like Renaissance man or specialization shouldn't be taken for granted, because they're not so black and white as it seems. Let me start with a quote from Buckminster Fuller. If nature wanted humans to be specialists, she would, for instance, have given them a microscope on one eye, which is what nature has done with all other living organisms, other than humans. So what the hell am I talking about? Recently I decided to change the outline of our website, and I put an image that sums up the services. You come up with the idea, we will make sure to automate everything until the construction site, and hopefully automate the very construction site in the future. But here's how it looks. 3D, BIM, drafting, that is okay. But then we include static analysis, and then on top of that, virtual reality. My friends thought the same you're probably thinking right now. This makes no sense. It goes against every rule in modern marketing and advertising. What you want is to find a niche and be the best at it, and then expand from there. Almost all business books will tell you the same. If you decided you wanted to buy very good shoes, you're not going to the store that sells shoes and monitors and guitars. You will go to the one that sells only shoes, and maybe even only the types of shoes you want. So why did I do this? Because I believe that the old paradigm of specialization is misunderstood, and I want to test my theory on myself. If you dial back the clock, let's say to the beginning of Renaissance, you can imagine our human scientific knowledge as a circle, and every bump on that circle represents some scientific field. So if you were a science enthusiast then you could actually know a lot of biology and physics and medicine and mathematics, because the body of knowledge was not that large and you had the capacity to encompass them. No wonder you had Renaissance people then. But start going forward in time and every field develops. It becomes larger and larger, and from every field you have fractal branching, different areas of mathematics, biology, physics, medicine, and each of those areas start branching on their own. And people get more and more specialized in one single thing because they have no capacity to spread horizontally the narrow field of their interest. And then you have experts in the field, or average workers in the field. So if I tell you that I'm doing all these things I listed, you might think that either I'm lying, I cannot have the time to learn all those things in depth, or that I'm some kind of a genius or some kind of Renaissance man. So let me end the suspense. Neither of these two are true. If we go back to our circle and imagine the bumps being different parts of an architectural process, you might see 3D modeling there, drafting, structural design, static analysis, detailing, visualizations or virtual and augmented reality, and so on. So if you're someone who does renderings, for example, and you use 3D Studio Max and V-Ray, we all know that the majority of CAD software is on the market since the late 80s and the early 90s. And what have they been doing for 30 years? Perfecting their software, adding settings, new tabs, new possibilities every year, so that a learning book for 3D Studio Max can today easily have 3,000 pages. And if you want to be an expert in 3D Studio Max and V-Ray, you cannot possibly have time to be an expert in anything else. Well, I would say it's not that simple. And here is where our new profession of programming in architecture kind of breaks the rules. If you learn how to code and write plugins for all these programs, you slowly start to realize that there is a huge overlap. They all rely on the same CAD foundations. A mesh is a mesh is a mesh. In 3D Studio Max, in Rhino, in Revit, in Unreal, in RFM or ANSYS. NURBS is the same, Boolean operations are the same. You get to realize that the class structure of these programs is very similar. So what this means is that you do not have to be a vertical learner necessarily. You can be a horizontal one. When you look at the substructure of the software on the programming level, you realize that these concepts appear everywhere. We have 2D geometry like points and lines and curves. We have meshes with proper face orientation. We have NURBS geometry, as I said. In the higher level of abstraction, we will have beams, columns, plate, all the standard architectural elements. In the visualization department, we will have materials, lights, cameras. For structural design, you will have some cross sections, loads. So once you start to deal with these basic concepts, then you might realize why I'm offering static analysis and virtual reality at the same time. The beam that I generate automatically can easily have the information about its geometry, cross-section, material, loads applied to it, and exporting this beam to a static analysis program or to a game engine or generating technical drawings for it becomes a matter of technicality. Which of the pre-programmed functions do I call? This is what programming and automation do. They spread horizontally through the disciplines and combine them. That is why I have time and knowledge to offer all this, because there's a huge overlapping of principles. Of course, you and I will never know 3D Studio Max or Revit or ArchiCAD as someone who specializes in it and only does that. But the point is that we do not have to. Once we know the general underlying principles, if we stumble upon a problem in our project, we will be able to find the solution within a couple of minutes. And thankfully, there will always be people who are passionate about certain aspects of architecture, people passionate about visualizations or structural design. I know many of them, and they will climb up those trees higher than you and I can. And we will always need them, but to say that the vertical progress and specialization is the only way, simply not true. And on top of that, I firmly believe that even with this horizontal learning, you still have time and capacity to do one of the things vertically. Anyway, you know that lateral thinking will explore more options and make your efforts more creative. As Larry David, aka Boris, in the movie Whatever Works says, he is the genius because he sees the big picture. And please do not misunderstand me, I'm not describing a manager here. Professional CEOs whose only job is to organize people without a knowledge of what is done in the trenches. Managers try to stay above these trees, and I see them as being below because they do not know any of these things. So the division of human capacity at the moment is into these vertical skyscrapers and then a horizontal bridge at the top that is supposed to connect them somehow. And I think that's a wrong hierarchy, wrong approach if you ask me. Instead, the bridges can and should be in the middle, and the bridge should eventually turn into a foundation. And we can do that because of automation. Automation makes us realize that we can program the entire foundation as one system and then branch out and explore the details on every tree separately if we want to. And there will always be new branches and new specializations and leaves out of reach. But if we restructure our way of thinking from purely vertical to covering as much of the bases as we can with automation, we can reach much, much higher. And that is why I can write all those things here. And I hope that now you understand why it maybe makes sense. And you still might say, look, if I need a professional visualization, I will not come to you. I will go to an office that only does visualizations. And that is a fair point of view. But I can argue that if you find an office with this integral programming approach, you might want to consider doing everything at one spot. You might want to say, here's my idea, and instead of taking that idea to a structural designer to create an FM model, then to someone to automate the detail generation, then to someone to render and create a VR model, and in that process deal with 17 file formats and go back and forth between different software and lose information, time, money. How about I give you my idea, you automate everything and then generate all of these things for me from that one route. No complicated file transfers, no 45 people involved, integrate everything. Horizontal approach with vertical refinement possible at any stage. Starting in the middle of the tree, instead at the root every time. Now what do you think about that? I don't have to speculate. I am already doing that. We are already doing that. How about you? Will you join us? Subscribe for more videos, share, stay free. If you want to create your own cool plugins like Voronax or any of our other plugins, I can teach you how to do it. And if you go to proarchitect.teachable.com, you will see already some of the courses there, the Rhino Developer C++ course or the Rhino Developer C# course. You get small C++ and C# basic courses with them, and in the future you will get to see a lot of other courses on similar subjects. You can enroll in the course, you can see all the explanation here. You have more than 10 or 11 hours of video. The first couple of videos are free, where you can check out if you are able to download the software and create your own plugin, and afterwards there is lots of videos explaining all the basics of the development for Rhino so that you can create your own plugin.